Struggling with addiction is difficult to admit, but sometimes the cause of the addiction can be just as hard to face. The people at Mount Regis really care about each individual that walks through their door, which makes the process of recovery one of hope and continued support. Heidi Taylor walks us through their trauma and abuse specialty track.
It can be anything from child abuse to domestic violence to medical traumas to periods of overwhelming stress. When we talk about trauma, we're talking about, but sometimes it's a single incident or type 1 trauma, and that could be something that suddenly happens, like a car accident, or a one-time incident of sexual abuse or rape or a one-time assault. Then we also talk about type 2 trauma, which is chronic and ongoing trauma. And those are things like domestic violence, being in a situation in which they felt out of control and helpless and endangered for a long period of time.
And in instances like that, sometimes people turn to addiction, and we've talked before about how the hardest part is picking up the phone call to ask for help. And then once they get here, you guys will work with them to kind of figure out what trauma they went through that might have led to this.
Actually, yes. Well, the first step we're going to take a look at is what's primary? Is their addiction primary, or do they have an addiction? You know, is it alcohol abuse or alcohol dependence? So we spend a lot of time, or drug dependence, we spend a lot of time assessing and getting information. And if somebody has a trauma history, one of the things that we like to do is help them identify that. There are specialized treatment groups for that are educational. And there are also process groups, which means that the person may work in a small group to address the traumatic experience. We have therapists here who are trained in specialized trauma treatment. I'm trained, and my colleague Shane Fletcher is trained in eye movement desensitization reprocessing. That's a big fancy word for a specialized technique for helping people resolve trauma. So they might have an opportunity to do some of those things or all of those things. But the important piece is that we first identify what's happening with the person in their addiction and in their and in the disease of addiction.
And the great thing about Mount Regis is that you guys do take that time to figure out what the individual's needs are and walk them through a path that's specific to them.
Absolutely. Our treatment plans are individualized. We spend a lot of time getting to know people and really finding out what their needs are, so that when they're ready to discharge, they have the resources they need to engage fully in recovery. And
a lot of it is about the education that you provide them during this process. So when they do leave, they are equipped with that knowledge to get out of situations that may be traumatic to them.
Absolutely, yes. Sometimes people, domestic violence is rampant in our culture and very hard for people to talk about. It can happen to men and women. We often think of it always as something that happens to women. That's a myth. That's some of the education that we do, and so just really helping people identify, okay, what's happening in my life? What has happened in my life, and how is it affecting me now? And how is it related to my drug or alcohol use?
And once people leave here, they're never really on their own. I mean, you guys are always here if they need to come back. You provide stuff in the community for them. If they need help once they leave, it's there.
Absolutely, right.
And Mount Regis Center is located on Kimball Avenue in Salem. For more information or to get help, you can call 540-389-4761, or you can go online to mountregis.com.